Didn't you? Since he lives in Woodstock. Today, though, John represents the commission's work in northeastern Illinois following the retirement of Steve Byers, who many of you know. So John now has worked for the commission for 23 years. So now the young pup is Jonathan Sabbath, but he prefers to be called Joe. So Joe Sabbath has worked to support the Illinois Nature Preserves system as a field rep now with the Friends of the Illinois Nature Preserves since January of this year. And in that role, he spends most of his time working with volunteer stewardship committees at sites throughout Northeast Illinois. And recently he has helped set up groups at Bolo Bog, which Stacy is the employee there, and at Kishwaukee Fen in our county, and then also at Illinois Beach State Park and Superior Street Prairie, which is
in Calumet City.
Oh, Calumet City. Okay. So you'll hear more about his work with some of these sites tonight in his presentation. So please welcome John and Joe.
Is there another one?
I just want to start out by saying something. How many people in this room have actually been to a Illinois State Nature Preserve? Not a forest preserve, but a nature preserve. Has everybody been to one?
You've been to Bolo Bog.
If you've been to Bolo Bog, you've been to a nature preserve. All right, a lot more hands go up. But, okay, pretty much everybody. I think it's an important question to distinguish nature preserves from other places that a lot of people think maybe are nature preserves, but they're technically not. All right, Jonathan and I decided, well, actually, Nancy called me up and said, John, would you give a presentation to this green drinks group? And I thought, I don't want to give a presentation, a PowerPoint, just show you pretty pictures and just feed you something. So the thought was to do something a little bit more free flowing, interactive. And I think it was Amy Dahl, who's the executive director of the Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, it's a new group, suggested that Jonathan tag along. And I thought, oh, that's great. So we'll have an old dude perspective and a young dude perspective. I've been doing this work for a long time, and Jonathan is just coming on board. So I think maybe our different ages and perspectives, it's kind of good. It's interesting. I can look backwards. Jonathan is mostly looking forward. I can look forward too. But I do have the benefit of time, I guess, on my side. Well, actually, he does.
Benefit of experience.
Yes, benefit of experience. So what we thought we would do is just ask each other questions about the nature preserve system and our different viewpoints, or maybe the same viewpoints, and just see where that goes. If people have questions, just raise your hand and we'll deal with it. We're all in this presentation, I think, together, is what I'm trying to say.
I told you it looks like a fireside thing right there, this view.
No fire though.
Fireside chat.
Yeah, and that last thing that John said, I definitely, young pup, his words, I got stuck with that. But I think a lot of just talking to people before this started, a lot of probably a great deal more about the nature preserve system, and especially the preserves in McHenry County than I do. So if I say anything that's incorrect, jump in and tell me I'm wrong, and I'll apologize. But I'm just kind of give my perspective. But I figured I would start by we both got introduced, but I'd let John introduce himself, especially because we heard that you've been working for over 20 years for the Nature Preserves Commission. We got a little bit of what you do, but what's an average day, or what did an average day look like 20 years ago versus now? What does the last 20 years look like for you?
That's a tough question to answer, but I'll start with this. I work for a government agency, so I'm a small cog in a big wheel, and every position in state government has a title, and my title is Natural Resources Advanced Specialist. Okay, right. I'm advanced, and I laugh at that. Why am I advanced? Because the other biologists that I work with, they're not advanced. And I think I got to figure it out though. It's because I do the stuff they don't want to do. So I do a lot of legal work. I work with all different kinds of landowners. I deal with development threats. I deal with engineers, scientists that are trying to protect nature preserves, politicians. I go to board meetings, village boards, municipalities, try to convince them to maybe do things differently, especially when it comes to development. So I'm making fun of the advanced part, but I did take a job when I first started that I think most biologists would not take. And that was defending nature preserves in northeastern Illinois at a time when subdivisions were coming in at 1,000 homes at a time. And this was the urban landscape was exploding. Truly. So they needed somebody in this position to actually go to municipalities and defend nature preserves, or even what we call Illinois natural area inventory sites that are not yet legally protected from all this urban development. And so I learned a lot doing that. That said, as soon as I got a chance, it was about 2005 or 6 to jump ship, I went to Northwest Illinois where there was much less development. So I got to work as what's called a natural areas protection specialist. And so in short, my job, what I've been doing ever since, is working to protect land that qualifies to bring it into the nature preserve system. And that area that I covered was in Northwest Illinois. And now I cover Northeast Illinois. So we already have a lot of nature preserves established in the system. So it's not just going out and finding new ones, bringing new ones in, but it's protecting the ones that we have and trying to manage the ones we have. Something important about my job is the Nature Preserves Commission owns no land in the state of Illinois, 0. But we work with a partnership of landowners that do. So we work with anybody and everybody that has land that would qualify as a nature preserve. So it could be a private citizen, it could be a corporation, it could be a forest preserve district, conservation district, anybody. And so it's a very diverse group, truly. Park districts, municipalities. And you think about it, all these different groups have varying degrees of resources and skills to manage and protect those places. So it's on a sliding scale. McHenry County Conservation District, for example, has lots of resources to manage. They have staff, they have funding. They don't need me, except for when something bad is happening. Yeah, if something's going wrong, they get my phone will ring. So getting back at this question, what do I do? It's land protection, it's restoration and management, and it's defense. Those are the main things that I do. I wrote down a list of things that I'm not an expert in anything. I'm a jack of all trades, kind of. Just it's a matter of survival. So I wrote down I'm a restorationist. I'm a lawyer. I'm a politician. I'm a scientist. I'm an ecologist, a botanist, a salesman, a surveyor, a historian, a hydrologist, an engineer, a negotiator, and sometimes I'm a psychologist. I kid you not. When you sit down with a private landowner, for example, and they're taking the step to permanently protect their land as a nature preserve, this is a big deal. And and I'm seeing their hands shake when they're signing the document, because they are actually giving up their rights to that land, all the development rights, and they're promising to maintain it in its natural conditions forever, and that's gonna follow the land. It doesn't end when they sell it or die. It follows the land. So it's a big deal, and being honest and upfront is always the right thing. So pressure never works. When I said salesman, I'm not really a salesman. That's kind of a negative connotation, but I do represent a very, I would call it an agency with a mission that I love. It's a mission that I'm passionate about, and it's a mission that can change people's lives. And the implications of handing over your rights as landowner to the state of Illinois, in a way, I have to be a salesman, but in the end, what I'm doing is helping them. I'm not telling them what to do. It's their decisions. Okay. Part of this question is what it's been like over the last 23 years. Real quick, I remember going to my first Illinois Nature Preserves Commission meeting, and that was in 2000, January of 2000. And we've all been to village board meetings, county board meetings, right? Everybody in this room probably's been to one. They're very formal, kind of dry. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
I mean,
I've been to one.
they can be very contentious. I mean, when people show up at one of those meetings, they're usually, quite honestly, pissed off. They never come around when things are going well. I went to my first commission meeting and I was so impressed with this board. It's a board of 9 members appointed by the governor. They're people just like us in this room. They're advocates for the environment. They might have academic backgrounds. They might be teachers, but they all share a passion for environmental advocacy in the state, and they don't get paid a penny. Nothing. So they do this out of their own time. So at that meeting, I remember walking away from it going, God, this is a government agency with a heart and a soul. I swear. The people in that room, it felt really good. They gave presentations, PowerPoint presentations. Maybe it was so long ago, it was slides. Remember those?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Right, the carousel. So, but I came away from that feeling really good. They were protecting land, and the presentations were empowering. They were passionate, and everybody in that room was like, yeah, you know, this is great. So I just felt really good from the start working for this board. I don't dedicate land. I'm just helping to dedicate land. So I bring proposals forward to this board who makes ultimate decision along with the landowners. God, I'm talking too much. All right, last thing I'll say, because I'm supposed to be talking about my past here. Before I came to work for the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission, I worked for the Illinois Natural History Survey right out of college as an research assistant, and I was in Alton, Illinois, in the Mississippi and the Illinois rivers, and God, it was a great job. I loved it. And it was really hard to step away from that job and take this job with the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission, but I'm glad I did. So I've been blessed, lucky, whatever you want to call it, my entire career being able to do what I feel is very important work, whether it's research or it's environmental advocacy. And yeah, I've got maybe 5 more years to go, so I'm looking for new blood. I shouldn't say new blood. That's not the right term anymore. But young people to come in and take over where I left off. Whatever.
Can't go until you feel confident.
I talked too long.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
You were talking about the salesman part of things. I remember, I think it was my 3rd day with friends, and I bet some people in this room know Lorna Gladstone.
Yep.
Yeah, I was meeting Lorna, and she was telling the story of how she dedicated her fen as a nature preserve, and part of the story, I think it was the first time I heard your name, was John Nelson said it's just the right thing to do. I think you said that to her at some point, or she remembers you saying that to her, and was I think what convinced her. So that's the salesman
Right.
part of it.
Somewhere along the way, someone said that. I don't know if that was me. Steve Byers was very much involved with Lorna Gladstone's nature preserve as well. So I don't want to take credit for something I didn't do. But
Yeah, I'm remembering a story. Who knows?
yeah,
Who knows?
But about myself,
but
a little bit.
I'll just start with my name. I met a guy in Scotland, Jonathan, who went by Joe, and I was Johnny for
15
years of my life, and I just at a certain point I had to stop being Johnny. I think I don't know. Were you ever a Johnny?
I was, and I never liked it.
Yeah. I was a John in kindergarten, and that didn't work. So Joe ended up sticking better than anything else. But I know I get a lot of questions about it, so I wanted to address that.
The other way,
But Nathan, I'm maybe named after a Nathan. But yeah, that's names. Well, so young pup is was not. John sent me that, and I said, I guess that's okay. But it's accurate in that I think I am new to Johnny the young pup. I'm new to this field in general. I'm new to the workforce in general. I've been out of college for a little over about a year and a half now, so I'm definitely new to the scene and learning a lot. How I got into restoration, just really briefly, I ended up working on an urban farm in college, and just the guy was a weirdo. He loved nature more than he liked farming and food, and so you'd step out onto his half an acre in the middle of Garfield Park in Chicago, and there would just be an eruption of crickets and bugs you'd never seen before, and I was like, I want to be wherever I'm in a place like this, and that's sort of how I got into all of this. But I mostly John talked about the management and the defending side of the nature preserve system, and so I
work with people who've been thinking about that for a long time, and thinking about
how do we keep our precious nature preserves, these really special places, what's important about them there, these endangered species, these rare habitats. How do we defend them against things like brush and lack of fire and all the things that require a lot of people to be involved with them. I think we'll talk more about this later, but I help sort of find the people that want to do that, and I help them learn what they need to learn to be able to be those stewards, be the caretakers. I know there's a lot of stewards in this room, I think, just talking to people before this. And so my job is to sort of help people become stewards, bring new people into that work, and help them, fall in love with our nature preserves, and be a big part of bringing nature back into people's lives. And that's sort of what my title is field rep, but I think of myself as somewhere between like an ecologist and a community organizer, all those things. But the goal is to take care of our nature preserves. But I guess the next thing is sort of, what is a nature preserve officially, and where did that come from, and why are they the way they are, and all of that. So I'm going to give it back to John.
Okay, so what is a nature preserve? A nature preserve in Illinois is a very special place. It's defined by a boundary, and it's afforded what we call the highest level of legal protection status of any land in the state. That's a big deal. And the reason that it's afforded that high level of protection is because there's only one way it can be condemned, and it would have to be an unavoidable public necessity. There'd be no other way for such and such to happen than to take a portion or a nature preserve. It's never happened in the 60 years.
Okay.
Of the
That's what I
system.
wanted.
So roads get routed around them. I kid you not, you'll actually see it on maps. Pipelines go around them. So nature preserves are special in the state. And it started, let me go back. Of course, nature preserves are defined by boundaries and legal descriptions. And there's a portion of language in the act that creates nature preserves, that these places are held in trust for the people of present and future generations of Illinois residents. So it's really forward thinking. And the Illinois Natural Areas Preservation Act, which created the nature preserve system, was signed into legislation in 1963. And it was the vision and brainchild of George B. Fell. I don't know if you've heard of that name.
Mhm.
But in the history of conservation of the state of Illinois, that name is held very high. He had a vision for a nature preserve system going back as far as 1948 when he was a young man. And the Illinois State Academy of Sciences at that time put out a resolution or some sort of proclamation that it was important for Illinois to protect its natural areas because they were disappearing at an alarming rate. So visionaries like George Fell and others at the time, State Museum, Chief of the Natural History Survey, he was talking to these people, but he got directed to Washington, D.C., and he started up this organization called the Nature Conservancy, you know, whatever. But he ended up coming back to Illinois. I forget the exact date, but it might have been like late 50s. And
58-ish.
maybe, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Back to fight for Bolo Bot.
And he started up the Natural Land Institute, and he pushed for legislation to create the nature preserve system in Illinois, and it was not easy. There was not that much support for it, so I don't know all the hurdles that he had to go through with his colleagues, but in 1963, that legislation was passed. It's called the Illinois Natural Areas Preservation Act. So the first nature preserve in Illinois was Illinois Beach State Park. And that was at, let's see, 990 acres. So that was the first nature preserve in Illinois. And to this day, it's probably the crown jewel, without a doubt. We live in the prairie state. If you want to see the highest quality prairies in Illinois, one of the sites you go to is Illinois Beach. And it's still high quality.
That's that north unit, right?
There's two nature preserves at Illinois Beach. One is the North Dunes unit. I'm talking about the south.
Oh,
I'm talking about the south
okay.
unit.
If you go to Illinois
Yep, so if you go to Illinois Beach and you know where the resort is,
You
you go south. Okay. Up to the Dead River, it's open to the public. After that, it's restricted.
But if you're a volunteer steward there, you go south of the Dead. Yes, there's a new group that just got there. So that's a plug for that. It's a drive from here, but
It is always fun to go pull sweet clover at Illinois Beach in the South Unit. It's glorious. It really is. That's a good plug. So today, there's 416 nature preserves, over 62,000 acres. There's 206 what we call land and water reserves, totaling 121,000 acres. So in total, there's 622 sites protected in the nature preserve system as of 2023. George Fell, I think he would look at this as wow. I can't help but think he would be like, it's exceeded expectations. All right. So we've been doing a great job protecting land, but there's a whole nother part to this. You can protect land, you can draw a line on a map and say that's protected, but is it going to stay worthy of protection? Is it going to stay the quality that you want it? That the reason that you protected it? It won't unless we're involved, and that's a fact. Let's see. The smallest nature preserve in the state is Temperance Hill Cemetery Prairie at less than 1 acre, 0.78. Back in 1969, the IMPC had one staff at half-time staff person. Today, we have 16 full-time staff, including a director. Okay, I guess that.
I got a couple additions, which is one, if you're interested in like the George Fell story, there's a book, Force of Nature. I forget the author. Like people know it. I actually didn't finish it. I need to go back
We
and
gotta do it.
do the whole thing. I made it halfway through. And then the other part of it that I think is worth mentioning is that Illinois' nature preserve system, as I understand it, was the first of its kind. There was nothing to protect these small, gems. And so every other state in the union very quickly kind of copied us. And so I think one of the things we talk about with the 60th anniversary is how do we make Illinois a pioneer and a leader in conservation again, like it was 60 years ago. So I guess that's sort of the history. We also want to talk a little about like what does the future look like to us here in this room, and what what's promising, what's been hard, what's going to get better, that kind of thing. Or we have till 6:40, right?
Yep.
Okay, we gotta speed it up.
Yeah.
Bingo.
So what does the future look like, and what are we, what do we want it to look like? What might it look like? I have a couple. Maybe I'll start off on this one. There's an article that came out in 2006 that's Chicago Wilderness 2030. Have you guys? Yeah, okay, people know it. So I think that I was rereading that before this, thinking about what's the future of the nature preserves, and there's like it's kind of a utopian vision of 1 in 4 people are stewards, and there's at least 100 times more dedicated. That's sort of what they were writing about. And I guess the answer is sort of shoot for the moon, land among the stars, right? Is we can really dream big, and I think part of that is this sort of community stewardship, getting people who've never been off the path on a park into a nature preserve, and saying this is, it's good for all of us. It helps with mental health, all these things, but important, it helps us have that relationship with the land. I think that's a big part of what the future looks like. But I'll let John talk more about his future visions.
Oh. Well, can I just also say that I'm sure that most people do know about 30 by 30, but can you just explain that? Because I've run into people who have not heard that term.
Okay, I'm thinking of a specific article actually, which was in the Chicago Wilderness magazine. Called Chicago Wilderness 2030. That's sort of a vision for the future of what wilderness in Chicago might look. You can look it up. If you look up Chicago Wilderness 2030 2006, it'll come up. And it's an interesting vision of sort of, how ambitious could we be with what nature might look like in this area.
So what's the question again?
What's next? It's been 60 years. We were groundbreaking. We did it. What's next for the preserves?
The next thing now this is my opinion. This is not stated some policy or something, but my opinion is that, and I wrote this down, I think a mind shift is occurring. People need land and nature, but the disconnect has never been greater than now. And the nature preserve system can provide people an opportunity to reconnect in the most meaningful way. And we all see it. I mean, people there's just, this thing and TV, whatever. They're not getting out in nature. I think the shift has to happen at some point, because I feel like it's part of our DNA. It really is. So maybe a lot of our societal stress, all our angst and anger comes from a lot in a way. We're disconnected from nature. We evolved in nature. And now we're in this artificial environment, right? Cyber world, internet, whatever. I'm a baby boomer, I'm complaining. But
Showing your age.
so I am definitely showing my age, but I'm hopeful though. I really am. If we have a nature preserve system that all right, a system of protected places, they're fragmented, they need us. If we turn our backs on these places, they're going to degrade. They're going to be overrun with invasive species. You all know the story. So people have to be involved in these places. Maybe nature preserves can provide a conduit to this reconnect. And that's where the friends group and all these other conservation groups come into play.
This is a good opportunity to hand out the visual aid I brought.
Yeah. This is high-tech stuff from 1975.
From Wallaby.
But these are just pictures of the volunteer efforts at, most of them are from Kishwaukee Fen, which is our local nature preserve here, that Friends, there's many, in this area, but Friends is an organization, I don't know the exact story, but I've been told it was almost an orphan site owned by the village of Lakewood. Almost no, very little conservation staff outside of the INPC, as I understand it. And so this was before I was with the Friends. This was, I think, 2 or 3 years, 2 years ago?
It was a couple of years back.
2 years ago.
Not that long.
So this is when Friends was all volunteer. People decided that they wanted to adopt this site and build a community there and try to do it not just in this sort of single steward method, but really make it so that there's a group sharing. There's a group sharing
That's really what
the care of this place, and that's really what the Friends model
together
is.
is not just one
People
person.
working together is not just one
If they
person
move,
who's,
or they get a new
if they
job,
move, or they get a new job, or they get injured, or
that
they
the
get sick, that the stewardship doesn't end, but it's a shared community. Yeah. Sorry. But that's what I think Kishwaukee is really building towards, and you've seen in 2 years, I think John can speak to a little bit of those changes that have happened there. I don't know, is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, Kishwaukee Fen was a site that I referred to as an orphan. It was just out there by itself. It was and, dedicated, it was dedicated, it was protected. We knew about it, but nobody was taking care of it. So I was asked by friends, Stephen Packard and Matt Evans, for 2 sites in McHenry County. And I'm not gonna name this other site, but I showed them the worst one I could think of, because I just wanted somebody to do something at it. And I showed them Kishwaukee Fen, which I knew had potential. And they said, we'll work the Kishwaukee Fen, but we're not gonna work at that other one. So there is a triage that's happening here. I mean, you have to go with places that are still have potential, that have the parts. There are other places we can make better, but we can't get them back to a restored condition. But Kishwaukee Fen had that potential, and the community that you built around that, and I love that word, the community. It's not just a site steward. If we can build communities around these places, these nature preserves, it's like Jonathan was saying, Joe. If somebody dies or whatever, they move, they leave. There's an entire community connected to it. So if you think about our roots, I mean, weren't all of us part of a community at one time? And at one time that was connected to the land, a place, at least a place, so yeah, I love that community idea, and I've seen it work at Kishwaukee Fen. So what it looked like before was there's a lot of reed canary grass out there, but the fen part and the sedge meadow was still hanging on. And so that's the focus of attention, is on the heart of that nature preserve, that natural area. And the Friends group has cleared brush, invasive species like, buckthorn, honeysuckle, those guys, spot herbicided the reed canary grass. We've done 2 burns there, I think.
There's some pictures going around of, there's the volunteers burning with John and the INPC crew.
Yep, okay. So the fen itself, the part that's the qualifying, what we call the qualifying feature of the nature preserve, life is being breathed back into it. And it's a community that goes there almost every Sunday, right?
I think every other Sunday right now, yeah. And everyone's welcome to join. We just did our big sort of 2nd annual kickoff where Mike was there in the back, and I think other people, Cynthia, you were there, yeah. It was a really fun day, and this is sort of just a way we're, inviting everyone. This is a great time of year to be out there. I know a lot of people here have somewhere they're at, but if there's anyone on Zoom who doesn't, and is looking for somewhere to get involved, it's a really wonderful community and a really important place. Our other local one, just before we finish today, is we just a brand new community at, this is just where Friends works. There's many other worthy places in the area, but places that I'm involved with are Bolo Bog, where we have Stacy the expert, our resident expert on Bolo. And this is where Melissa Greichen, the biologist for the region, said we could really use some volunteers. Stacy had a group for a while, and we're just sort of picking up where COVID put things on pause. So those are a couple local options for, you know, if you don't already have somewhere that you love.
Yeah, it's kind of neat too, is how the communities connect. The conservation district, which is working with the FEN on exchanging seeds.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get some seeds for the right area and switch, and then at the same time, the FEN is gonna contribute some seeds back. For biodiversity.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just want to also commend Joe. One of the things that he's bringing to it that I couldn't is youthfulness. And that's not just that I'm old, it's just, you reach out to the people you know. And I don't know enough young people. And so he is getting throwing a broader net. And we need to do that. You know, you look around our room and we all kind of look like the same demographic, you know, aging old white people, and we need to expand well beyond that in every way we can. And we've got some. Yeah, you gotta remember, we were young ones too, and we had people that were older than us that welcomed us and mentored us and nurtured us along the way. Thank you, Joe, for helping us to.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so I got one more question for you on that community and following up on what Stacy said. We're not just talking about the Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves in McHenry County. What are we talking about?
One thing that we like to talk about when we're sort of, what's our vision? What does Friends want? Is I think that a phrase that gets thrown around a lot is every town big enough to have a little league team should have a group of people caring for whatever the most important natural area in their town is. You know, it should be that part of our culture. It should be, you should have the guy at your high school who teaches shop and the guy that brings the teenagers out to cut buckthorn. You know, it should be just embedded in how we think about nature. And I think that's something where we talk about what was it in the past. You know, people did have relationships with the land, and I think we're
Barn raisings.
what was it?
Barn raising.
Barn
Have a
raising.
barn raising.
Yeah, but I think people miss that. I think that's the thing I see in my generation, and maybe I'm biased by who I hang out with, but I live in Chicago, and even there, you know, people are really, really hungry for a relationship with the land we live on. And I think it has the power to, you know, do a lot to save these natural places, but also to improve the lives of the people who get to take this and make it a part of their lives. So, yeah.
Joe and John, can you talk a little bit about public access and nature preserves?
More you.
Yeah, public access depends on the landowner. Private landowners generally don't want public access, but they can. It's entirely up to them. Conservation districts, forest preserve districts usually always have public access. So it goes all the way, you know, and there's some in between that's by invitation only. So publicly owned nature preserves are normally open to the public.
And what's the ratio?
Oh, gosh, I don't know off the top of my head, but usually private landowners prefer to remain private and not have their nature preserve even identified in a directory or on a map. Yeah. So we honor that and we respect that. Yep.
What's the place to find a directory?
I'm sorry.
Where's a place to find a directory?
Oh, Google Illinois Nature Preserves Commission. You'll go right to our website. There's a directory there and they're updating it right now. Yep.
And on the note of sort of public access, I mean, I think we were kind of joked about it with Illinois Beach and south of the Dead River, but I do think, you know, having that relationship where you're there to care for it does sort of, it grants you almost like a special access. You're there to, because you're thinking about how to take care of it. You know, I mean, we don't have partnerships with a lot of private landowners yet, but we've talked to a few about, you know, that's a way where, you know, as a volunteer, you see a place no one else gets to see. It can be
Because you're there to
help take care of it. I mean,
we've
talked about it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've gotten to go to some places. I mean, people should not be walking off of Bolo Bog, but there's glossy buckthorn on the bog, and you got to treat that in the summer sometimes. And so that's a thing that I now have checked off my bucket list. Is once I got to go into the bog, and it's, you know, that's the type of thing that having that relationship it's pretty special.
But I think that's what, can I just add to that? I think what adds the point there, I think, is that there are gonna be places where you don't open to the public because it's too sensitive of land. You can't do that. But people who are willing to volunteer their time, that's when they get access to these beautiful places. I mean, the conservation district is different a little bit than a forest preserve, because forest preserves are open, pretty much you can
Go anywhere.
go anywhere. Like I was at, in kind of like, where are you going? They're off the path. You know, but for the McHenry County, we don't do that because we want certain areas that are being preserved simply because they need to be preserved. If you want to get out there and see them and experience them, then you need to be participating in volunteer, and you can go out there and you can trim bushes or, cut off corn or, plant trees or whatever. So I mean, I think there's opportunities for people who want to get out into these special lands, but it's as a steward. Right, not just somebody who can walk around.
A question and a comment. What's the largest nature preserve?
Oh, that's the Cache River in southern Illinois. I wrote that down.
It's on the other side, I think.
It's over 10,000.
Okay, and what was the
Yeah,
total acreage again, like 60,000?
No, 120.
Yeah, total.
Oh, that's with your land and water calculation.
Right, so,
So cash.
nature preserves, totals over 62,000 acres. And we have this other, land protection, which is called land and water reserves. And that's at 121,000 acres.
So the cash is 10 of that, okay.
Oh, yeah, Cache is big.
And I have a comment to make. My name is Cindy. I'm the site steward of Palatine Prairie,
Okay.
located west of downtown Palatine. I believe our site was dedicated 1995, so we've been at this a long time. What I did 4 years ago, and I want to encourage any of you whose properties are owned by park districts. My site is owned by Palatine Park District. And of course, park districts have a lot of turnover of staff. But my thoughts 4 years ago was that, you know what, the only way I'm gonna get serious buy-in from the park district is to get them to put up or shut up. You're talking about Little League. Well, there's a lot of money that goes into ball fields with park districts. So I basically went to them and said, you've got a state designated nature preserve. Ours is designated because of the white lady slipper orchids. That's how we originally, that was the plant that made that mark. And the plant's doing fine at our site. We have monthly work pay, sometimes bi-monthly, but anyways, I've been at this for years. I've been involved in that prairie for about 30 years. So what we did was, I sat down with the park district staff, and what they cleverly did for us was that they were like, okay, Cindy, who do you know that'll kind of work cheap? Well, because I worked for Cook County Forest Preserve for a couple of years, I knew Matt Hokinson. Matt had just started his company, Woodlands to Wetlands, him and his wife. And I was like, hey, Matt, I want to, talk you into something, because park districts own land and you need to, be a contractor for park districts. So basically, as long as he stays under like a certain dollar amount, he doesn't have to go out to bid. And so he gets the work at Palatine Prairie. And so I've noticed that getting the landowner to have some buy-in financially, they have become more serious about being the landowner of a nature preserve. So I'm not knocking the volunteer efforts, and we still have volunteer work days, but I really think that where you folks are at, if you can help stewards like me, my site's only 7.5 acres, but park districts have money. I mean, I just got my property tax bills went up $700 from last year. And so they've got money, and I'd like to see them, do more that, you folks do the volunteer efforts, but legally, they are kind of on the line as the landowners. And to get them to put up some money, I strongly encourage that. If any of you in the room are in that scenario like I am, come and talk to me or whatever.
Nancy.
And thanks.
Well, to follow that, environmental defenders have been involved along
many years now, since I think 2017 maybe, with the Crystal Lake Park District. And the Crystal Lake Park District,
Just putting pictures back.
oh, yeah. Crystal Lake Park District owns Stearns Fen part of Wingate. It's near Wingate Prairie, part of the Veteran Acres Park. And we've had a very active group there for many years. In fact, a lot of times at our meetings here, I'll announce that, remember, 9 to 11, the last Sunday of the month, come on and join us at Stearns Fen. We have a crew there that'll, it could be 5 people one month, another month it might be 30. We've had a lot of Boy Scout groups that work there. We get kids from Prairie Hill High School that will help us there, for Prairie Ridge High School. We get kids from as far down as Algonquin and, that need hours for their clubs in their school and so forth. So, but we always welcome more people. Bryce Alt is the official, he's one of our Defenders members. He's the official steward there. But Steve Byers is with us every time we have our work day, and Randy and I are always there and so forth. So that's a great group. I always bring brownies, so come on in.
There you go.
Yeah, I taught in Cary for years, and the building that I taught in was adjacent to a Prairie Hill Nature Preserve. Actually, it wasn't a nature preserve at the time I taught there, but it had since become a nature preserve. It's one of the very few nature preserves that it's a hillside prairie in the state of Illinois. It's only 4 acres. Most of the work done there was with my science club kids here over the years. But Randy and I, there's not a lot left to do. So Randy and I do most of it with a neighbor woman who was the mother of one of my former students. So there's only 3 of us that usually work there. So we would love to have some of you come help us there. Just contact me if you would like to take part in that.
Well, are there any more questions for our speakers? And then we can all promote our nature.
Yeah, well, I knew that Joe wanted me to mention, there's other areas in our county besides Kishwaukee, Fen, and Omaha. So there's plenty of places to put in your volunteer effort. We'd love to have you go.
I'll plug in for Bi-Stricky Prairie.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the second and third each generation of property owner, way beyond the original private owner, and what your experience? Do they maintain a relationship and care, 20, 30, 40 years later?
Right, as you'd expect, there's varying degrees to answering that question. My experience has actually been pretty good. So even locally here, I can come up with at least 3 examples in the last couple of years where the nature preserve was going to be sold. And we were very concerned who was going to be the new person coming in. But the family stepped up, and it's still in the family. The person lives out of state, but it's still in the family, and they're very pro nature preserve. So it requires us to step up a bit because they're not there all the time, but there's a continuity. That's what Durs is talking about, the continuity of dedication, passion for the land. It can be broken if you get the wrong landowner. We have no choice who that landowner is going to be. If it's a privately owned nature preserve, it's probably going to remain in private ownership. We're not going to buy it. It's unusual if it's adjacent to a larger holding that the DNR has.
Or they might will it to you.
They might if it's gifted.
With something else.
And that just happened. I got an email today. Landowner of Land and Water Reserve, a really wonderful woman. She's now in a nursing home. She's aging out, and she wants to see that given to conservation. So that's going to happen. But the worst case scenario is it does happen if there's a number of siblings involved and they're fighting over the estate and it's chopped up. Well, they can't chop it up without our permission. That's one good thing. But if they're not interested, management can stop. Because the landowner is in control. We don't have authority over the landowner on what they do with their land. So if they choose to do nothing, that's their choice.
Kind of within all of that is, I think the most important thing is for the new landowner, somebody to reach out to that person and say, can I come with you and explore the land that you just purchased from the nature preserve perspective?
Yep.
You can look at all the legal signed papers.
We try to do it proactively, actually. If we know it's going on the market, we talk with the real estate agent. We say, you got a nature preserve. You got to market this.
Take the agent
and this is a positive. And
There's goody.
Most of the time, they're like, really? What? Tell me more. What is this? You know, so it can be a feather in the cap, whatever you want to call it. It could be a marketing advantage. And it's a tax advantage too.
Nathan.
Curious what some of the biggest successes you've seen in your careers, as well as the losses or the misses. Maybe it'd be good to do the misses first, so we end it up or no.
All right, I'll be brief. The losses, the worst ones are usually small sites that it doesn't take long for them to become degraded, and they've been neglected for a number of years, maybe a decade, maybe two. Then you go back and look at them, and you're like, where's the qualifying feature? It's gone.
It's buried.
Where it's buried, but those are sad examples, sad situations, but it's a fact of life. And it's something we all need to keep in mind. The reality of the situation is if people are not involved in nature in a fragmented landscape like we have, these places will die. It's a fact. So success stories, there's plenty of those. One that's developing right now that I'm very excited about is happening in Bull Valley. We're hoping to acquire a very large parcel that's going to bring together 7 privately owned nature preserves, and this is close to making it happen. And we're working with a landowner who wants this to happen, so there's no reason why it shouldn't. And be grateful there's funds for this. There's what's called a Natural Areas Acquisition Fund, and it's for natural areas. For how many natural resource agencies across the country would love to have something like what we got? It's not always there, but it is now. And so we have money to buy this, and that is going to be a big success story. And I'm hoping the community is going to be built around this, because we already have the puzzle is there. It's going to come together.
We're working on getting a new field rep, and so I think that might be down the line something they work on. Hopefully,
An additional.
Yeah,
not a new one.
Yeah.
Still gonna be there.
Oh yeah. Right. There was another one before, and she's moved on to some really great things. But we're hoping to get her boots filled, and see what we can do with one more Joe on the streets.
Right. There's other success stories. I'll mention one real quick. Bluff Spring Fen. You ever been there? Anybody? That a fen is groundwater dependent. Okay. Yeah. That site is surrounded by mining and highways, residential development, everything that you would not want in a groundwater dependent system.
Landfill next door.
Yeah, it's all happening. But it's amazing. We've worked with our survey scientists and our adjacent neighbors, the mining companies, and that groundwater system is still relatively intact and keeping that nature preserve alive. And that is because it's a nature preserve and we're involved, and we have scientists who can give us the expertise and credibility to make good decisions, and our neighbors actually have done it. So it's a balancing act. I mean, they have rights to their land. They have mining rights. It's zoned for mining. We can't come in and say you can't mine, but we say your mining can't damage the groundwater system that sustains this fen. So you got to figure out a way to do it. And they did. So far, so good. That's a great story, but too long to tell here.
Are we out of time?
Yes, we are out of
All right.
time. So thank you, and thank you for bringing us to a positive note, Nathan. And thank you to our speakers, John and Chuck. I'm gonna continue to use that because now we have, yeah, I got it. Now we have, this is the time where we have a 1-minute round robin, which, and yes, I'm back again, so I put my timer on. I was gone last month. I was in South Carolina in the Appalachian Mountains, so. If anyone has any announcements related to environmental issues about things that are upcoming or things that are happening or invitations to work at your nature preserve? This would be the time. You get a minute each. Who would like to start? Nancy Gonziorek.
Thank you. I am Nancy Gonziorek with the Wildflower Preservation and Propagation Committee. We have many great programs to support what's going on. We just finished our outdoor grant classroom cycle. So we have new schools that will be getting classroom grants to have outdoor classrooms so that they can be grooming these young, oh, grooming's a bad word, so sorry. These young kids to come into a world of restoration. So we give them native plants so that they can have an outdoor classroom and teach kids about native plants. We will have our seminar, our natural landscaping seminar, which is a don't miss opportunity in February, on February 17th. And our native plant sales. So if you need plants, that will be on May
1st Sunday.
The first Sunday of May. So I also wanted to tell you that we are looking for stewards for our Crystal Lake projects. Crystal Lake is so forward thinking. Can I finish it, Anne,
Yes,
please?
you
Thank you. She's so nice to me. Crystal Lake is buying up blocks where there is flooding problems. They are buying the houses and raising them and creating rain gardens to help improve the quality of the lake and to prevent flooding in the neighborhoods. And we have some great projects in Crystal Lake to create rain gardens and to have display gardens so people can learn. So please contact me or my partner, Patty Fialek, if you want to volunteer and work on our projects. Thank you so much.
Who's next? Kim?
Waiting my turn. Just stand up. Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Hankins from McHenry County College Sustainability Center. Does anybody know what's happening on Saturday?
I do.
Tell me, Ann, what's happening?
The Green Living
The
Expo.
Green Living Expo. This is the 16th Green Living Expo, which is crazy. But it's going strong. I've had just a flurry of calls today about people wanting to get in and wanting to come, and where is it? And so there's a lot of energy behind it. So I hope you'll join us on Saturday from 10 to 3. It's a free event. We have over 80 vendors and displays and exhibitors and all sorts of stuff. What else was I going to tell you?
There's some new vendors.
There's some new, yeah, we have actually lots of new vendors. But it should be really fun, and I hope you can join us. And we are taking a break next year, so we will not be having it in 2024. Because there's something else happening in November of 2024 that grabs everybody's attention. So we're not going to fight with that, and we're just going to take a break next year. So please come this year so we can go out with a bang, at least for 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect
Timing.
Who is Nancy?
Yes. Nancy Sheetzel with the Environmental Defenders, and just want to invite you to some events we have coming up. The Environmental Defenders received
Away and talk louder so people in the room can hear.
received a grant from the county to hold several meetings around the county in order to inform people about the incentives and the benefits that you can obtain from the state of Illinois through the CEJA and then the national government through IFA, the Inflation Reduction Act. And these are benefits that you can get from everything from buying an electric car to maybe buying an electric stove or a new dryer or whatever, anything that you can do to make your house and your property more energy efficient. So we have 2 events coming up. One is the Thursday the 9th, which is next Thursday at the Woodstock Public Library from 6 to 7. And the next one is at the McHenry Township Recreation Center, Building B on Richmond Road, North Richmond Road in Johnsburg. And that's 6 to 7 on the November 27th. I have a whole stack of these on the table. So if you wouldn't mind picking them up and spread the word, please. Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
I'm Marty Gorman, and tonight I'm with the Food Shed since Sue is not here, and I just wanted to say a couple things. We will be at Green Living Expo. Yay, we're excited about that. Check out our site. It is just so cool. There's actually a roof going over, which after all these years is no small feat. And also, our holiday boxes have just been have just been announced. So check out your emails and they will be distributed sometime in December. But for more, Thank you. December 6th. So for more information, check out your email or our website.
Okay, we're moving on to Stacy. Let me change this over and restart.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight and being interested in all this stuff. Some of you were asking about publicly accessible nature preserves, and you've heard me mention Bolo Bog quite a few times tonight, so.
Way cool.
I was going to say way too many times, but who's never been to Bolo Bog? Go ahead, admit it. Raise your hand high. Just one. Wow. Okay, so all the rest of you already know that the tamarack trees are deciduous pine trees, and this is the week they turn golden. So if you want to see them at the most beautiful time of year, come anytime within the next 4, 5, 6 days, through the weekend. It's a show not to be missed.
And this Saturday, there's a volunteer stewardship birthday happening at Bolo Bog.
The same time as the Green Living Expo. So, yeah, you have to make a decision. But I'll be a Green Living Expo. But thank you, everybody. Come see the bog.
Perfect timing. Anyone else? First.
Yeah, the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, November 17th and 18th, has Art of the Land, the Starline, old factory in Harbor. Really fun event with great hors d'oeuvres, wine, just beautiful paintings and photography. So I'd like to invite you all there.
One last quick thing. Joe mentioned the book called The Force of Nature by Mr. Fell. I believe we have that book in the Green Reviews bookstore in Crystal Lake. So if you want to buy that, stop in. It's very, very inexpensive, very interesting.
Might even be at the Green Living Expo. Oh, Cynthia.
Thank you. I'm with Prairie State Conservation Coalition, and we're a statewide organization that all organizations that are concerned about conservation are welcome to join. We were founded by Conservation Land Trust, like the Land Conservancy of McHenry County. Jonathan's supervisor is on our board, and John Nelson is someone I really look forward to getting to know better. Unfortunately, he has to play pool tonight. Otherwise, we were going to hang out. And I would just like to thank you guys for all the work that you do. I was at the Kishwaukee Fen event, Friends of Kishwaukee Fen, a few weeks ago, and it's in my neighborhood. I'm in Algonquin. It was really special, and that connection of humans to nature is the ultimate. It's vital for us to continue on. Our coalition has a conference every year at Starved Rock. This year, 2025, we moved to Pere Marquette, and coalition members and others, organizations that wanted to fight for our land conservation, which also protects water, are welcome to come. And everyone's welcome to support us. Thanks.
Anyone else? No. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We will see you again December 6th here to celebrate the holidays and celebrate the natural areas, natural resources, benefits, and accomplishments that we've made in 2023. So we'll see you December 6th. And thank you again to John and Joe. You got it.
Kishwaukee or Bolo Bog or friends in general, just let me know.
Did you have a card?
I have a card. I have a publicly available email. Just send me a message. If there's anything you want to hear about with friends. Leave this here. You can take a picture of me.
That would be great. Or just
enter them in your contacts.
That works too.
Let's be done.
And thank you all for being here tonight, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We won't see you again until December.
Yeah. Got taken doll and no, there's a couple other people I didn't know. Do I need to do anything if I just end it? It's recording.
You have to end the meeting.
Okay.